morning, everybody. Welcome again to our weekly table talk with always illustrious guests from all walks of life. Today we gather on this feast of the presentation of our Lord in the temple, the presentation of the child Jesus in the temple, in the presence of his parents Joseph and Mary, and also as an extension in the presence of Simeon and Anna. So today we welcome those who are present, our audience, and those who are, thank you audience, and those who are watching live stream today for a conversation about how a new parishioner happens to come on board, especially in the teething stages of COVID-19, knowing he or she may not have the normal luxuries associated with parish membership that we know so well in normal times. So today Mimi will represent all our new parishioners who have come on board right at the beginning of COVID-19. So today Mimi will share with us her journey here at St. Joseph, knowing the many restrictions that our diocese and our parish and our society have put in place to protect all our people. Mimi, welcome.
Thank you.
How did you find us?
Google Maps. Yeah, I moved here from DC back, oh gosh, it was like the end of March, early April, when the world was freaking out and, you know, everybody was locked down. So, you know, Sunday came pretty quickly and I was like, holy cow, where do we go to Mass? Can we even go to Mass? What's in the area? I was living with my parents and they didn't know. And so we started doing Bishop Barron's, you know, Word on Fire online Mass just because we couldn't find a church that was open. But eventually that came to a close and churches started opening up again, and so we're like, where should we go? And we looked up on just Google what was nearby, and we live way out in the country, but we made the drive in and came to Mass, and we just fell in love. It was just such a welcoming church, so beautiful. I mean, I think the first time we drove the wrong way, we went up the hill of the cross and we saw that little chapel, like that's not it. And so we came back down and parked in the back parking lot but found our way in, and it was just, that was our first experience, and it was just really, really, really beautiful. So.
What did you observe, you know, that created this sense of welcome here at St. Joseph? What was it that touched you or moved you, you know, to more or less say, this is the parish I want to be a part of?
There were several things. So I had been kind of dating different churches because I've moved different places. I lived in Little Rock, I grew up in Houston, I lived in Alexandria, Virginia, and then DC, and I saw a lot of different types of parishes. What really stuck out to me and made me feel at home at St. Joseph's was, first of all, the parishioners' reverence. Coming in to the church, everybody was just completely reverent, and then after Mass, it was like a community. People were waiting, they were talking in the parish hall, and it was just really, that was the community that I had been searching for so long. And the other thing that really impressed me was I really loved how you and the deacons would fist bump people and say hello to people, and you knew people by name, and I had not ever experienced that before. And even, you know, when we do the socially distanced sign of peace, people really looked at your eyes and they really connected with you, and they were really communicating like Christ's love, and it just really touched my heart, and it touched my dad's heart too, and we were like, this has got to be our church. Like, we're doing the 40-minute drive every week, this is going to be great, and we've come every single Sunday since, or Saturday night, depends on the work schedule, but yeah.
Beautiful. You know, God bless our deacons and God bless our community. There is this beautiful sense of um, intimacy and friendship, and companionship. This week we are part of a conference put out by the Southwest Liturgical Gathering, and this theme for this year is the liturgy of neighbour. And what came up this morning, in conference was the closest thing to adoration of the Blessed Sacrament is a simple connection with your neighbour through the simple element of touch. Because it is that element of touch and connectivity that comes next to the Blessed Sacrament, especially adoration of the Blessed Sacrament in the context of touch and sense. So what you experienced here at St. Joseph comes second place to adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. And any man or woman who can speak the way you did in relation to a feeling of intimacy with neighbour is certainly synonymous with that beautiful connection we receive by staring at the Blessed Sacrament. Each and every time we stare at the Blessed Sacrament, a small piece of evil that permeates our being is removed at that moment in time. A small piece of evil is removed each and every time we stare at the Blessed Sacrament. Each and every time we connect with our neighbour, that sense of intimacy is enhanced. And God willing, any sense of negativity we may have had of the neighbour or perceived in the neighbour is also gradually diminished. So thank you for sharing that beautiful connection with our deacons and with our parishioners. At a professional level, Mimi, tell us about your professional background in Washington.
Sure, yeah, that was very different from what I'm doing now. When I was 22, I graduated college with a very useful degree of political science. So I was like, but I was connected with a mentor actually from this area, and she hired me on basically as like kind of a secretary, and for her nonprofit that she was working for. And it basically what it is a corporate social responsibility nonprofit for the distilled spirits industry in the United States. So what we would do is I worked in the government relations department, and we would work on bills that prevent drunk driving, underage drinking, binge drinking, just for the responsible consumption of alcohol for our funding companies. And I worked really hard, and by 25, they gave me the opportunity to become director of government relations. I got to go to Berlin on trade missions, and they just were such a wonderful group of people that really championed me and my colleagues, and it was a really great place to grow as a professional. But I felt like I was still missing something, so in my spiritual life, so I tried volunteering once a week. I worked with a little girl after school. I worked in my junior league in DC with women's shelters, but I still just wasn't finding that fulfillment. So I started discerning like my vocation and figuring out what I needed to be doing, and it turns out it wasn't lobbying. I felt called to go to law school, and so that's what I'm currently working on now. So I talked to my parents, and they said, we love this idea, come on home, let's focus on the LSAT, let's knock it out of the park, just focus only on getting into the school that's right for you, and then we'll go from there. And so I came home, and that's what I've been doing since. So
beautiful. You used the word sponsor. We talk about sponsor in the secular sense, sponsors who work with us in the professional arena, and then we have in the sacred arena, we have sponsors who walk with men and women and young adults preparing for immersion into the Catholic faith. What, in your opinion, are the ideal characteristics for a sponsor, either in the secular arena or in the sacred arena?
Sure. So I went through RCIA as an adult in 2017, and I had a sponsor in more of a religious sense, and I think the characteristics that she portrayed were ideal for like a religious sponsor, in that she didn't just listen to me, but she encouraged me and she helped align tools for me to succeed, which is very similar to what my secular sponsor did as well. She didn't just mentor me, she wasn't just a friend, but she also advocated for me, for opportunities for me. So they both kind of, I think, characteristics that make somebody a good sponsor for somebody else is, willing to go the extra mile, and just empathy and also honesty with that person. Like sometimes everybody has limitations, areas that I needed to grow professionally or even on RCIA spiritually. Both of those women, those are very separate things, the spirits industry versus, RCIA. They both were able to help me figure out what I needed to work on in order to succeed, whether getting closer to Christ or attaining objectives for like quarterly goals. So that's what I would.
You are, a young lady, 27 years old, a baby.
Oh, good.
This is the first time you and I have conversed, and certainly conversed at this level. A young lady, 27 years old, I certainly admire and applaud your spirituality, your faith, your love for Jesus, your love for the church. There are many men and women your age, in all walks of life, who may have begun their journey in Catholicism or in other denominations, but sadly have walked away, abandoned church life, abandoned God life, abandoned faith life. What guidance can you offer them and us to bring them home?
I feel like people have been trying to answer that much smarter and wiser people than me since the founding of the church, right? But I can only speak to my experience. I was always a lukewarm Catholic. Like, we would go to church, we tried to go every Sunday growing up, but it was kind of hit or miss. We just didn't really have that culture, we didn't have that community, and that was sort of my example. And then going off to college, there was always struggles, being out of state, being alone, trying to join a community, but nobody in there was Catholic, so that just kind of fell by the wayside. And I would go to church maybe once a month. But then later as an adult, and like living in a big city and the fast pace, feeling a hollowness, I was reminded just by those early seeds that were planted, just by the little touch points of church, just by knowing really good Catholic people in my life would remind me, like family members that are devout or certain priests that I met along the way, that helped plant seeds for me. And so I would say, being like really living your faith and being that for other people, whether it's overt or not, you're making an impression. And I think that's a really genuine way of introducing the church to people and reinforcing the church to people, because we've all met people that when you meet them, you're like, oh my gosh, this person's like a saint. They're just radiating Christ's love. There are people like that, and that's what really, I think, draws more people into the church. People like me who were kind of lukewarm and trying a bunch of like professional stuff or extracurricular stuff to try and fill that void, but really it was only the Holy Spirit that could. But meeting people that really exuded that, I think, was what drew me in and keeps me in. And the other thing I'll say to that is, at St. Joseph's particularly, I've never been involved in a parish before, but here I'm doing, like, just in this week alone, I've done 3 things. You know, I've done a Bible study, I went to Exalt, I'm here now being interviewed by my priest. Like, I've never done this before. but I love that. I look at that app.
Actually, that is a live audience.
Oh yes,
That
thank
is
you.
not an app.
Thank you.
I want to be clear to our listening audience and present audience that this is a live audience even in the midst of pandemic.
Yes, the socially distanced crowd. That's amazing. Yeah, but anyway, like having a community and wonderful staff members that just reach out to you, because I connected with Kristen Pope after Mass, who you alerted, you know, in the announcements section about the SEEK conference, which I'm doing this week as well. That, yeah, I would not have been so engaged. So it's just, I think community and also just trying to live by example and show Christ's love in just little ways, I think makes a really profound effect on people who are searching and maybe don't even realize that they're searching for it. Because I think we all are.
Beautiful. And Mimi refers to the SEEK conference coming up this weekend at St. Peter's in Burney, or Holy Trinity. Which parish is hosting it?
St. Peter's.
St. Peter's in Burney. And this SEEK conference coming up this weekend is specifically designed for young adults between 18 and 29, 30 years old. If you would like young adults who are watching and present in our audience to be a part of SEEK weekend, please reach out to Mimi, please reach out to Kristen Pope, please reach out to Rose Mendes or our parish office for additional information. Before we conclude our Tuesday morning conference, Mimi, you spoke earlier about those who are willing to go beyond the call of duty. And yet we see in many vocations, in many walks of life, there are many who are just deliberately and strictly aligned to their own job description and not willing or wanting to go beyond their own job description, to go beyond the call of duty. Why do you think that is?
You know, I think it might be like a lack of worthiness, a feeling that you're capable of doing more and being called to more. Kristen actually said something really wonderful the other day when she asked if I could lead a small group. I don't know, like I really am not eloquent at all, like I'm kind of new to this. And she's like, well, you know, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I was like, wow, that's true. So, but yeah, I think, you know, it's really safe to stay in our bounds, and you know, you don't have to be vulnerable, but just by taking a toe over the line, you get more comfortable. Then next you can take a foot over the line. I think just knowing that you're safe and that God loves you even if you mess up, it kind of gives you more of a push to do a little bit more than what you think you could. But I think it's really hard to get to that space mentally. So that's why I think community is so important. So I guess encouraging folks to get involved with other people with similar values, I think would kind of help with that maybe more.
Beautiful. And now that we have you and Kristen, thank you audience, now that we have you and Kristen, you know, on board, you know, we are determined as a staff, and I am determined to encourage you and pester you with more and more invitations to be a part of our awesome community here at St. Joseph. Like any family, we love each other. At times we have our tensions and our disagreements, but deep down we do our best. And for the many times that I have upset my parishioners and my staff, you know, I ask your forgiveness, especially on this feast of the presentation of the child Jesus in the temple. Today, to close, we honoured Melvin Hutzler, 85 years old. Melvin comes to our chapel every day in adoration from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Never leaves. He is like Anna, the lady widowed for 77 years, married for the first 7 years of her life. Her husband died after 7 years of marriage. The next 77 years she spent each and every day, each and every hour in front of the Blessed Sacrament. No different than Melvin Hutzler, who attends our chapel each and every day, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I encourage our audience and those watching, if you have never given at least 1 hour before the Blessed Sacrament, 30 minutes before the Blessed Sacrament on a daily basis, maybe follow in the smaller footsteps of Melvin and give Jesus a chance to stare at you and you to stare at him. Mimi, you are awesome. And we love you and we respect you. And please come back in the near future for a second interview. God bless you. God love you.